Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today we want to return to the subject of DIY OS-free NAS systems and how they compare with turnkey NAS solutions such as Synology, QNAP, Asus or TerraMaster. And at the very start of 2024, we want to help you answer the question that may be drilling around in your mind. Which one should I go for my server? Right now, if you're trying to buy your first, second, third or whatever server and you're considering going for a turnkey solution or going DIY semi-open source OS-free pre-built, there's a lot of pros and cons to go for that. And in today's video, myself and Eddie are going to have a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of debate, and hopefully still remain friends by the end. So today I'm going to be representing DIY. I'm going to be representing and telling you why your next server should be a do-it-yourself, build your own OS-free solution. Eddie, on the other hand here, is going to be helping, or hopefully convincing you, to go for a turnkey NAS solution from the likes of Synology and QNAP. So, do you know what, Ed? I don't know about you, but I think we need to get the elephant in the room out of the way, and that is, hot damn, it's cheaper this side of the table. Man alive, when it comes to going turnkey versus going DIY, you cannot argue with me that it's not cheaper over here.
It is cheaper because all you're buying is the hardware. That's it. You're not buying something what you can't see, which is software.
Okay, I'm not buying the hardware. I'm buying the hardware.
And that's all you get. So if you buy this hardware and you have no knowledge,
we're going to break that.
Well, that's definitely going to be broken. What do you do with this thing as a total beginner? You have no clue. So you got this cheap NAS. Then now what? You need to stick it in your box, install something on it so you can actually access it and use it. So you need some sort of knowledge and time, most importantly. So do you have the time to set this thing up, and do you have knowledge to do that as well? So if you do that, if you do have it, okay, then we're just talking about time. But how much time is worth in your life or my one? Because I prefer to set things up and they are having a support, warranty, all of these things taken care of. So all I can do is just use it. Where you need to do the maintenance all the time. Oh, there's a new update, some changes coming through.
Someone's hoovering. Fantastic. Carry on.
And that's it. So how much is your time worth?
Well, no. Before we get on to that one, before you start letting me know how much my per hour rate is, I'll say right now, this isn't the only thing you can do with DIY. When I say OS free, you can go ahead and buy numerous OS free ready solutions. Now, some of these are semi-OS free, like the Link Station. That arrives with an Unraid license on board, but you can go ahead and install TrueNAS on that as a piece of piss. Over here, you can go for an U-Star. We talked about this. Again, these are solutions that are NAS ready, a 2-bay U-Star there. You can go ahead, we've done videos on it, and get yourself a mini PC. Another thing I'm probably going to break at this rate. This is an i7 12Gen system here that's Proxmox NAS ready to go ready, and you've even got more affordable single boards. All of these systems I just described arrived with software. You don't have to use it, you can go third party, but technically these are turnkey.
Usually what our thought is that something what is free usually costs you in the long run. So if you get this open source software, usually the problem with open source is that there will be no support. There's no one you can call to. So Unraid lately, which is free operating system, they do give you now a monthly subscription fee that you can actually call them up and ask how to do
friend
things.
Of the channel, Ed Rawlins, he does that now.
So it seems like it's free, but it's actually this hidden cost to something what is free.
Only if you use it. It's only if you need it. I'll agree with you that there is a higher skill set required.
As a total beginner, you need it. Either you need IT friend who is in IT, or you need a support. That's where even if it comes with pre-installed OS and other apps, you still need some sort of knowledge. You know, your friends, they come to you with your laptop questions and how to empty a recycle bin and things like how to boot it up and things like that. You need someone.
Those people are the worst. But I'll say right now, like, I will give you that going DIY an OS-free pre-built solution, it does have a higher skill level, a skill requirement, a learning curve is higher. I think most users understand that. And I agree with you that if you go turnkey, you are going to be saving more time, and how much your time is worth can also equate to the savings you will make. But I would also counter that point with, much like the good Lord George Michael once said, freedom. Going OS free means freedom. I can go and choose Unraid. I can choose TrueNAS, Core or Scout. I can choose Open Media Vault. I can choose a myriad of different network management options from OpenWRT, pfSense, and more. If I lock my data and my bunts, let's be honest, into a Turnkey NAS solution, it severely limits the freedom I have with regards to the operating system I want to use. And very pertinent to 2024, there are certain, Synology, certain brands out there who are being very creative with their compatibility listings. And the idea that if I go turnkey, I can use whichever hard drives or SSDs I like in the way that I like. And the very idea that I would buy a solution that would limit me in the components that I use in what could be charitably called an artificial fashion is not great.
Yes, that's true. If, as we said, if you have IT knowledge, yes, you have freedom of choice. You know, you can install whatever OS you want, whatever drives you want to put in there. But if you're not using Synology, QNAP doesn't limit you on these things. So you can have any drives you want, and you can also install any third-party apps you want. But on top of that, you do get the support. And the other thing what you get is first-party apps. QNAP and Synology, they will create their own video app, their own apps that you're not going to even find on your open source solution. For example, Active Backup for Business. There's no other thing in the market that's going to do that. Acronis maybe, which is going to cost you a fortune to actually install. But you can actually do bare bone backup using Synology apps. And it's not just that, there's so many other apps. So seemingly you pay kind of more initially. It's one of course when you purchase, but you finance all these apps to be created. So, and you know that's all under the same umbrella, it's all supported. You know, if something breaks down, they will sort it out, they will improve. If you ask for new changes, improvements, they'll add them to the software.
But what if I'm not going to use all of those? What if what I wanted was a NAS to sit in the corner of the room so I could stream media to my PlayStation and my mate over the road who simply has to watch Game of Thrones because apparently he hates himself? Like,
well, there are budget options like J-Series Synology, for example. It doesn't cost anything. It's like $70 or something for a single bay.
Those Realtek ones, okay.
That's going to be cheaper than your, the open source NAS.
But even then, I think for a lot of users who are going down that road where every penny matters, you know, we can frankly sit here in our ivory tower surrounded by hardware here and say, oh, it's only $200 or it's only $500 or only $1,000. But when we drill down into what that money gets you, let's go for a direct comparison there. I'm sure there'll be something on screen. On the table here, I have a B-Link. This is the one I mentioned earlier on. It's an i7 12th Gen system, 32 gig of memory. Now, it is a mini PC. It doesn't have the storage, I grant you, okay? This isn't going to be an exact science comparison. This knocks around for about $500 to $600. If you want a NAS that's got that CPU and 32 gig of memory, the only NAS that has that hardware and that CPU is the QNAP TVS H874 and 674. They start at $2,000. Yes, they've got the 8 bays of storage. Yes, they've got a PCI upgrade slot. But that's a lot of wonga above that. That's a lot to ask for people.
That is true, but also I would consider open source sort of solution, DIY NAS, only if NAS brand does not offer that sort of feature. For example, Plex. If I wanted Plex server only, then obviously I'm not going to buy 2K NAS from QNAP. I'm just going to buy this one for 300 quid, which is, for example, 12 Gen i7 or i5, and it's going to do what you need it to do for so much cheaper. It makes sense. But if I need bare metal backup,
or the sheer storage capacity as well,
it's just not going to do what I need.
And again, devil's advocate, let's keep it fair. The reverse is true, because we look at solutions like this one. This is the Acer Store Flash Store series, available in 6 and 12 bays. It's completely built using M2 NVMe slots, so this only uses M2 NVMe's. It arrives with an Intel Celeron N5105 processor. It retails for about $450 up to $700. It is not possible to build this. I can't build this. There is no board out there that has got 12 M2 NVMe's and an Intel Celeron CPU on board. I can't build it. That doesn't exist. There is no one of these available to buy for that. So you're right. If there is certain case scenarios, certain types of solution, I appreciate that DIY sometimes doesn't facilitate that opening. But talking of one of the other reasons I think a lot of users who get in bed with DIY and don't leave it, and particularly this is a very pertinent point for tech in 2024, sustainability. Now, if I build a lot of these solutions with those storage arrays, particularly TrueNAS and Unraid, more so than anything else, the portability of that hardware is significantly easier. I can move those data sets, I can move those pools to a new TrueNAS or Unraid system and it will pick it up. Now, if my data is in a Synology ecosystem, I can't take those out and put them in another third-party server. I can't. I can't put them in a QNAP. I can't put them in a DIY. I can't see the data sets. I am locked in on their ecosystem. I'm locked in on their hardware. I'm locked in on a system that can't really be repurposed in the same way this is repurposed. Same goes with repairs. The repairs of these systems have to go through authorized channels. Whereas these, I can go real wild with repairs. I can repair it myself if I choose in a way that the Synology unit, when I'm in their warranty, I'm not allowed to do my own repairs. And once it's out of that warranty, in most cases, they won't have anything to do with me. There's just those businesses of sustainability, reusing old parts, that's just not possible on Turnkey NAS solutions.
Yeah, hardware-wise you can't do that, but drives you can move from older NAS to a newer NAS.
Only within that ecosystem,
but the same as you got the ecosystem as well. If you choose it to be Unraid, you're not gonna move it to TrueNAS. Can you?
You can, because you can now create those ZFS pools that can be moved around there. And within TrueNAS, those data sets can be contained and mounted as well. Like they have an element of non-proprietary lock-in that means I can actually, for example, if my data is within a DS923, right, and that DS923 dies, if I take those drives out, I can put it inside another Synology. I can't go lower than a DS923. I've got to go DS923 or higher. And that minimizes my options quite substantially to get my data up and running again. Whereas in the case of these systems, it's very easy to get that data remounted.
If it's Synology, if it's QNAP, they also have ZFS pools, so you can move those.
No, it's still locked in on their own file system as well. The ZFS QUTS ZFS file system pools only work within QNAP ZFS QUTS Hero pools there. And also, while we're talking about proprietary, I do think it's worth highlighting with proprietary means that the upgrades are non-proprietary locked. Take example, I know we keep waving it here at the screen, but we've got here a micro ITX and this MITX board here. Now with this, I've got a PCIe slot, which allows me to pretty much, forgive the expression, stick whatever I want in it. On top of that, the memory upgrades, I can use any memory sodium I want to use, I can use any SSD that I want to use. There are proprietary, artificial if you wish, or basically brand sanctioned upgrades on those systems, which significantly lock in the upgrades I can use, which can then lead to creative pricing of those upgrades, overspending on those upgrades, and in some cases being forced to use components that are less than I would like to use but costing more than an alternative, such as crucial memory inside a Synology system, as in using third-party SSDs in the slots of that Synology system.
Yeah, with Synology, that's true, I'll give you that, and overall you get the credit, but QNAP and ASUS, they are not locking their upgrades. You can use third-party RAM if you want to, they're not going to scream about it. Synology does, but I wouldn't apply that to every single brand, which is first party. But the other things that is more important, sometimes you want that support on your NAS, so you know that all of the components in that box is just under one warranty. Because for your case, like, yes, you can mix and match things, but then you need to think, okay, if CPU dies, I need to go to that website. If it's motherboard, is that website, hard drive is there, and it's like RAM there. It's like every single component has its own warranty. One is 1 year, 2 years, no years, different contact numbers, and you need to keep all this in mind. It's so frustrating, you know, when it starts falling apart. With that, you can get like a support from this first party, like Synology or QNAP. They'll actually connect to your NAS and sort your problems.
The remote access, yeah, I'll give you that. I think And again, you can arrange that with certain vendors. Again, TrueNAS, if you get an IX Systems NAS, or with Unraid, they do provide that subscription support.
Well, you pay extra.
Yeah, of course
You might end up having the same price at the end when you start paying for your support, start paying for your third-party apps, for example, Plex or something. If you just rely on these third-party software, everyone will want to get something, because why would they create their software for free? It's pointless for them, it's not sustainable. Whereas that, everything is in one package, all warranties and support and everything is under one umbrella.
But I mean, even when we're talking about the hardware component, because you're right, when in terms of convenience, and it's that, circling back to the start of the video, it comes down to how much is your time worth. Once again, that's becoming a recurrent point. But I would say with the hardware, I think a point, and I've not really discussed this enough online, but it is becoming ever increasingly true. When you have a DIY NAS system, and this is something I've recognised more and more during the TrueNAS and Unraid videos we've discussed recently, I have a much greater access, control and utilisation of my bare metal hardware in those open source platforms than I do on DSM, QTS, TOS, ADM, whichever platform you want to look at. All of those Turnkey NAS solutions and their software do provide very limited, by comparison, access to the bare metal hardware. Sometimes I will try to assign hardware, and the system will simply say, you can't do that, or we're not going to give you that much access, or assign that many of your cores or virtual CPUs, that much of your memory. There are ways and means that it just simply will not allow me to allocate the same extent of my bare metal hardware to my utilization.
Yes, a little bit of hand-holding is all going on. So it's like someone is watching what you're doing, because with these systems you can put in some sort of third-party RAM or any other components which you don't know if they're even going to go together with that motherboard, because technically, yeah, they'll go in that slot, but if they're going to talk to each other nicely, no, there will be some bottlenecks and things like that. Whereas Synology, QNAP and other brands, especially Synology, they'll make sure that those components are perfect to each other, and they'll be talking and working, together just fine. Otherwise, if you go for some like third-party components which are not supposed to be together, you're actually risking your data, because if the RAM fails or any other component, like your data could be corrupted and you wouldn't even know. Whereas Synology, for example, they'll have data healing things going on in the background, and when you try to install something not supposed to be there, it's going to say like, no, you're not supposed to do it, or you're going to risk causing some sort of data loss.
But I'll counter that with two main examples we talked about in the channel over the last few years. Examples of when the overstretch by the NAS from a turnkey solution has, restricted me. Number one example, a few years ago, Synology, and not just Synology actually, other brands as well, were rocking out the gate with the Intel J4000 family of CPUs. And during that time, loads of people were reporting in Plex Media Server that the system wasn't running on the right driver, and they weren't able to take advantage of the onboard integrated graphics within Plex to make the most of their hardware, and their systems were very inefficient in how they were using integrated graphics within Plex Media Server. We needed to make a couple of videos and guides guiding people through how to use XML editors to actually force the system, not tell or request, force the system to use the correct VAPI driver there.
That was Plex issue. It's nothing to do with Synology or QNAP whatsoever. Because if you had that CPU in your DIY NAS, you would still need to
But this
changes.
would have allowed me to make the change significantly more easily than that was allowing it.
How do you define easily? Through the total beginners or thing. It's like, different planet.
And the other thing, we mentioned QNAP earlier on in certain components. QNAP quite proudly talks about how they support the use of GPU card pass-through, the ability to stick graphics cards in their systems. Have you looked at the compatibility list for that? It might be in double figures. I'm not sure. There isn't a lot of graphics cards on there. And when you go through the list, the number of this one will allow support of graphics card pass-through to Plex. This one won't. This one might allow you to use VMs and stuff like that. Whereas in these systems, within Unraid and TrueNAS, and again, I'll agree, there is a certain, skill set required in order to configure it, but at least there is the way to configure a graphics card on these systems here and allow me to fully utilize the power at my disposal that I have paid for. In a way, in the turnkey solutions, I'm not getting the full extent of what these CPUs... I mean, another example, sorry, I've just thought of this one. This one, I am really looking forward to hearing your counter-argument on this, mate. Certain Synology systems like the DS224 Plus and the DS220 Plus that came before, they are good systems. I stand by what I've said before, they are good systems. However, they arrive with 2 gig of memory that can be upgraded to 6 gig of memory, even though the CPU supports up to 8 gig of memory, and the reason being is because the 2 gig of memory has been soldered to the board inside. They've got one SODIMM there. I am now running a CPU that could have potentially supported up to 8 gig of memory, and they have artificially stopped me. And I'm using some weird 6 gig for a gig SODIMM with 2 gig of soldered memory on the board. What is this Frankenstein nonsense?
Yeah, that is. You win on that. They should never do that. Soldered memory, yeah, it pisses me off as well. I think you're being a bit too harsh anyway.
Okay.
Because you need to at least acknowledge that the money that goes into these brands like Synology, QNAP, Acer Store and other brands, this money actually results into some sort of improvement and innovation in general. So you get things like SHR, where you can mix different size drives in your NAS unit, like Drobo used to have. Now Synology allows that, and probably other brands will follow, like TerraMaster as well nowadays. You can
They've got that as well, yeah, T-Rate.
So there is some improvements. Also cards, you will never see anywhere else someone creating combo cards like this, where you can have NVMe and 10 gigabit in one single card, you know, or even flash stations, where you were mentioning as well.
Yeah, I did mention, yeah.
Didn't exist hardware of that kind, where you can have like 6 or 8 or 12 NVMe's into your NAS and all silent, and like QNAP with Thunderbolt. There's no other solution out there. Nobody would even think about having NAS over.
The only thing I would add, I would argue slightly on that one, is one, Unraid does support mixing and matching of drives. It doesn't give you the performance numbers that the RAID utilising SHR does, but at the very least you can mix and match those drives, but you're still only running one drive at once. Yeah. And when it comes to the NVMe systems or Thunderbolt systems, you know, DIY is catching up. You look at things like the Zimmer Cube, that's arriving with Thunderbolt 4 on board, and they are saying it's going to have network connectivity there. If it's not here, and it's still going through crowdfunding, so we have to stick a big TBC on the side of that one, but at least that option exists. And there are M2 NVMe DIY boards in the market. Sure, they're not as extensive as that, as I mentioned earlier on, but the DIY market, you know, it is growing, unfortunately. And I will have to add that one of the good and bad sides of DIY NAS solutions, these OS-free solutions, is a lot of them are born of these. You look at the majority of DIY OS-ready NAS servers, Ustar, you look at Link Plus, most of these brands started making mini PCs, and they've maintained those product portfolios. So these still seem to be the priority. Even some of those TopTon boards, the TopTon boards or the ones that I talked about on like Server the Home and stuff like that, unfortunately, not to give you more ammo, are originally designed for mini PC use. NAS use seems to come later, which does delay a lot of the innovation and development on these.
Yeah, but they're still using open source operating systems, which they do not always. They get their share in those from those profits. But also, you need to remember that QNAP is all because of those changes. QNAP and other brands are improving. For example, ZFS pools, you can actually you're not actually able to
on
improve.
On TrueNAS you can't expand them. That is infuriating. I think because TrueNAS have. So I know I'm interrupting. It's just because this is a very constant thorn in the side of a lot of TrueNAS users. And if you are familiar with TrueNAS, you know what I'm going to say. And if you're not, and you're thinking of jumping on board, bear in mind that ZFS pools only recently on TrueNAS can you expand the pools at the time of making this video, but that feature is still largely considered a beta. A premise right now. It's still not been fully rolled in and integrated into TrueNAS to expand your TrueNAS pool with just adding another drive. Up to that point, if you had 4 bays of storage, you know, in a RAID Z or whatever, which is like equivalent to, in terms of redundancy, a RAID 5, if you wanted to add a drive, you had to add another whole RAID set and then manage these two. And QNAP, as you say, they've now rolled in the ability to expand it by adding single drives if you want.
Exactly, and not just that, also things like surveillance from Synology.
Oh yeah.
That's like, there's no other better software out there, to be honest. Like Synology is they're giving you for free. You can have 2 licenses for free. If you want more, obviously you need to pay toward the development of that software, but it's amazingly good, you know. And comparably, it's cheaper actually compared to third-party apps out there.
Well, I mean, again, those that follow the channel, I'm not going to, be arrogant enough to assume you've watched every one, but in 2023 we did a video with Tom over on Lawrence Systems, and we were talking very specifically about camera licenses on NAS brands, and more specifically Synology, and we were talking about whether it's any good, and he himself put his hand up and said, there is still to date not really any kind of open source surveillance app that comes anywhere close to Surveillance Station.
You can find someone, because everyone's been chasing the holy grail of, isn't there some free open source tool that will do all of my stuff? I've not seen an open source project get off the ground very far out of they don't make it past like the hobby project phase, where there's like, cool, it kind of can show some cameras and maybe display, but it's gone through no security vetting. It's not commercially supported. It's one person college project, spare time. Maybe they get 2 or 3 people to work on it, and then it falls off. This brings us all the way back to the business model of selling licenses.
All of the abilities of home mode and all of the AI functionality and smart search and area of difference and stuff like that, that's just not available on open source.
So yeah, all that money that goes into this actually results into something good anyway at the end of the day.
And I think if we were to round this video out now, I think, unfortunately, I hope you've watched it to the end, I think one of the biggest takeaways from comparing DIY versus NAS is not unlike when we've talked about comparing NAS versus cloud. When cloud asks you to pay very small amounts of money but spread the cost of your experience over the course of the next few years, whereas in NAS they're just asking you to pay up front early. But even I would have to admit, based on your arguments there, that they are utilising that money and putting it back into the machine, as it were, that is Synology, is QNAP, is TerraMaster, is Acer Store.
Exactly, and look at it as a charity in a way, if you want to say the money.
I mean, that is a stretch, but yeah.
if you invest that money, it's like Kickstarter or things like that. You put the money in there, and it's gonna come out.
But right now, and I'll give you a second to think, but because I'll do mine first. But if you had to come up with one feature of open source that is, or open source or OS free ready built solutions that is not on Turnkey that you wish Turnkey had, what would it be? I'll give you a second to think, because mine, I'll tell you right now, if I was fully in bed with going DIY my own TrueNAS or Unraid solution, and I know that those of you out there that watch these videos that are in that world, I'll tell you right now, if I was fully in that world, knowing what I know now, the thing that I would miss the most is all of those apps and having the app on my Fire TV, on my Google Home, having the client desktop application, having those tailored applications outside of the NAS. They are phenomenal. All of those apps you can get on your mobile phones, you can have tailored access, not just one app from the open source NAS brands, and then, when I want to watch something, I've got to use a third-party tool. The very idea that all of those apps are in that big circle, hot damn, I would miss that if I stuck with these guys. But what about you?
Probably the fact of recycling your old components. If you have some old PC laying in the garage, you can use those components from one device to another and combine them into one sort of DIY setup. So that and you can have whatever RAM you want, whatever CPU or graphics card you want, and it's going to work.
I think a lot of users, once they finish with the Synology and upgrade to a new Synology, that old Synology, the only thing it ever ends up being is a network backup. They can never really do much more with it than that. And I think at the very least, all of these can become other things, which is probably for a lot of DIYers the true mark of its sustainability and reuse. But this has been DIY OS-free ready-built NAS solutions versus Turnkey right now at the start of 2024. What do you guys think? What have you bought? Are you still on the fence? Maybe we missed a point and you can let us know. We should be linked to an article below where we'll add further points that you guys can come up with in the comments. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. If you're still on the fence, you can always take advantage of the free advice section over on NAS Compares. Link below. It's the big blue button on the right-hand side of every page. Or you can take advantage of the Discord or the ask.nascompares community forum. If that's not enough for you, you need something a bit bit more expedited in terms of support, you can head over to our Ko-Fi or Patreon pages there, where not only is there the membership where you can get expedited support or just go for one-off fast track, you can also hire me or Eddie for consultation via there. And of course, if you do go for the membership tiers, you can take advantage of early access to these videos, take part in our monthly Zoom video where we talk about storage trends and other subjects and more, as well as take advantage of polls and exclusive content. But apart from that, Eddie, thanks once again for joining us here on the channel, and we hope you guys have a fantastic week.